My name is Bill Tribe. My nationality is British, but by choice I have become a Bosnian, or more specifically, a Sarajlija, a citizen of Sarajevo. I am now a refugee in my own country. 9 months ago, the Bosnian Serb Party, together with the Yugoslav Army, declared war on ethnically mixed Bosnia, and since then has torn it apart with racism. I haven't been in Sarajevo for 4 of those months, and now I am returning to see what has happened to the people I know there, and to try to communicate to the world the feelings not of the politicians or journalists or pundits, but of the innocent people who are being slaughtered for wanting to live together. The Serbian aggression has had almost no effect on what I suppose I have to call my Serbian friendships, although God knows I never thought of my friends ethnically. The great exceptions are those colleagues of mine in the university where I taught for 26 years who have joined the party of Radovan Karadzic, the leader of the Bosnian Serbs. I think especially of Nikola Koljevic here in this pub, where in 1976 he and I drank together. As we approached the pub, he said, "We'll be meeting a Yugoslav tonight. He's quite a nice fellow, really, although he's a Croat." I thought nothing of it at the time, but I've never forgotten it, and to me that remark now epitomizes the racism at the heart of Serbian nationalism. It was another Serbian friend of mine who coined a word for this slow murder of Sarajevo by Karadzic, Koljevic and their thugs: herbicide. Half my family is still in Sarajevo. My wife, Zdenka, is a Bosnian Croat. We are separated, but I hope to help her escape the city when I get there. With the help of the Bosnian presidency, for whom I was working as a translator, I myself left in August to be with my daughter, a refugee here in England. She was about to have her second child, while her husband remained in Sarajevo. I am taking with me documents which I hope will enable him to join her.
The stupid thing was that in the week I left, a Sarajevo poet, not a very good poet, but I mean a good bloke, published a poem in the local paper about me. And it more or less said, well, everybody else has let us down, but Bill Tribe has stayed. And he actually said in the poem, "I doubt if Bill Tribe knows where his passport is." And not only did I know where my passport was, but I was on the way out with my passport. I feel I cannot re-enter the club, that is, the special club of the people who have stayed in Sarajevo throughout this thing. And you will see this when we go there. You will see this special feeling they have.
Friends tell me that Bosnia is finished and that I should move on somewhere else. But to me, that's rather as if someone you love very much has had a horrible disfiguring accident, and you say to yourself, "All right, I'll go and find somebody else. I won't bother about that person anymore." No normal person would do this. You have to go and see the person you love, whatever has happened to them. Sarajevo has been my life. It has given me everything. I can't desert it now.
We are in Metkovic on the Croatian side of the Bosnian frontier, about to go in to Bosnia on an ODA convoy taking humanitarian aid up to Sarajevo. From now on we're in the war zone. I shall see a lot of familiar places, no longer looking familiar. This is Sarajevo. I'm going at last to see my son-in-law and his family and to bring him news of his wife, my daughter Tamara, and the children, the new baby that he's never seen. So that's where we're going now.
Kako je bilo? Jao, pa... Otko ti u pola 3. Sinoć smo o vama pričali.
Ja, prije nedelju dana nisam znao da ću doći.
Svaka čast.
Zahvalan sam njima.
Strašan. Iznenadio si me, prijatelj.
Ljubađije.
Strašan. This room is onion room. This is my son. He lived in England. And this is a chair. Onion room. This is a chair, onion, chair, and car. And this is...
When the war started in April, my daughter, who was 5 months pregnant, managed to get evacuated to England with her small son. The photographs I have brought are Samir's first sight of the baby, the child he may never meet.
Sama pomisao da sam dobio drugog sina, da sam dobio dijete koje nikad nisam vidio, jer sam ga vidio na slici. To je teško.
Ja.
Mislim, to je težak onaj.
Ali
Teška stvar, ali čovjek mora biti stabilan. Ne, mora biti stabilan. Onaj mora biti stabilan i... Jer moje jedino je da preživim i da budem živ. A njihovo je da ustanem.
I have suggested to Samir that if the President's office still needs me as a translator, perhaps I can persuade them to keep me in exchange for letting him leave the city. Samir solves a major problem by promising to find my wife and let her know that I am back. The war has made me homeless, and General Morion, the UN commander, now occupies the temporary accommodation that I was given while working for the presidency. Therefore, I have to find somewhere else to stay, in a city without phones, or electricity, or water, or fuel.
Through the good offices of the International Peace Center here, we found somewhere to stay with one of the secretaries there, who turns out to have been a student at the faculty at which I taught. We knew each other, as it turned out, and we were invited very kindly by her to stay with her family. Here we are sitting by candlelight, and a little artificial light which comes from a car battery. On my right, Alma. Next to her, their father, Mr. Zečević, their mother, Mrs. Zečević, Selma, who invited us here. That's the whole family.
Ima zimi kod vas? Ima zimi? Nema. Jel zime? Zima?
Zima, da.
A zima!
Thank you, and you. So. You can see this. We escaped from Dobrynja 4. Yeah, it's difficult.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to say I wasn't here for 4 months.
Really?
I left at the end of August. I got stuck in England because of that plane being shot down. I couldn't get back again.
Really?
So I came back with this film team to make a film about the town.
Nice. I read some articles in the newspaper about you. Maybe just 2 or 3 months ago.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, I was very happy.
I hope to be back again. We have to go back to England next week to finish the film.
Yeah, you are a citizen of Sarajevo.
Okay, take
Really?
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A citizen of Sarajevo. Not a Muslim, or a Serb, or a Croat. Just a fellow citizen. As the Lion Cemetery shows, the guns of Radovan Karadzic also make little distinction between Muslim, Serb and Croat. I came here to find the grave of a Serbian friend, the sister of the man who coined the word herbicide for the seed which has replaced with graves the trees that used to fill this place. It was this friend who drew my attention to the first resistance to ethnic categories during the census 2 years ago. There was much pressure from the three political parties which form the coalition, the Muslim Party, the Serbian and the Croatian parties, on their respective so-called nations to be sure to declare themselves in the census by the correct, relevant national name and with the correct, relevant religious affiliation. I learned that, for example, in a Serbian family, father had declared himself nationality Hottentot, religion Buddhist. The son had declared himself nationality Pacific Islander, religion Bogomil. Later on, when the full story of the pleasure that this unfortunately minority of sensible people had taken in putting absurd answers to these questions, it turned out that some people had put nationality, lampshade, religion, tablecloth, and such things. Such healthy rejection of ideological idiocy is something that this country so very badly needs. With vicious irony, directly overlooking the cemetery is the window of the room in which, before he turned to mass murder, Dr. Karadzic practiced his psychiatry. In May 1989, I came for treatment to Dr. Radovan Karadzic, recommended to me by a mutual friend, for treatment for the cyclical depression that I was suffering from at that time. I had a good first impression of him, and he said, "This will be very easy, there is no problem. I will put you on a regime of pills." And I was rather surprised only that he asked me no questions about the reasons for my condition, which were known to me, the background, what the nature of the problem was. He didn't seem to be interested in any of that, merely in directly clinically treating the condition. And very close to the end of the period, I felt one day extremely ill. So I stopped taking the pills immediately. I could only ascribe this curious condition to them. Within 24 hours I felt better, and now arose the problem what to say to strict Dr. Karadzic when I went to see him on Monday morning. I came into this room, sat down, he was at the desk, he greeted me warmly. "How are you, Mr. Tribe? Kako ste, dobar dan," all this kind of stuff. And I said, "Oh, Dr. Karadzic, I think you're going to be very angry with me." And the smile, which millions of people now know, spread across that face, and he said, "Really, Mr. Tribe, why?" And I said, "Well," and explained what had happened. And he said, "Mr. Tribe, I'm so proud of you. At last you have shown an initiative." At this point I said to myself, right, when I walk out of this door, I am not coming back. Since then I have not met the monster. I don't want. I'll kill him if I do, with my bare hands.
Uspostavi Bosne i Hercegovine kao države tri suverena i konstitutivna naroda. Ratni zločinac Radovan Karadzic je rekao da će pregovori uspjeti, ali je pritome dodao da neće odustati od, kako je rekao, suverenosti srpskog naroda na prostorima koje smatraju svojima. Predsjednik takozvane Jugoslavije Dobrica Ćosić je rekao da njegova zemlja nema teritorijalnih pretenzija prema Bosni i Hercegovini. On prihvata dogovorno političko rješenje tri naroda bez nametanja modela sa strane.
Selma's father has managed to get a message to Jovo Tuta that I have letters for him from his son and ex-wife in England. His obvious urgency sends me fumbling among the many letters I have been given by refugees who don't know if their families are still alive. Jovo insists that I come for dinner one night in return for what he tells me is the best news he has ever had in his life.
Ne znam, otišla mi je čer prije 2 mjeseca sa Jevrejima.
Da.
Sa konvoj. Dobio sam vijest da su dobro u Splitu, ali ne znam gdje su, jesu u Londonu, jesu u Ispiru, šta, kako su smjestili.
Ima li išta tu?
Ima sve.
Sve je dobro.
Sve.
All the destruction that can be seen from this window, and much more besides, was done mainly from guns firing from my right, from this mountain and beyond, because this is the territory which the Serbs hold. The stuff comes in from there. It can be heard in the background now. They are giving us a New Year's Day greeting, no doubt. Down here below me is the Parliament Square. I was present on Sunday the 5th of April when the people of Sarajevo gathered in hundreds of thousands to protest against the proposal of the Serbian Democratic Party that Bosnia-Herzegovina should be partitioned into a Serbian part, a Croatian part, and a Muslim part. People said, no, we don't want this, and they gathered in their hundreds of thousands to protest against that, a peaceful demonstration. And suddenly, from this hotel where we are now standing, came shots which were fired on the crowd. I am not sure what the casualties were. I believe one person was killed and a few were injured. It was a small event in terms of what's happened since, but it was the first shock of the war. The point is that this city is innocent. This city did nothing to provoke this attack. On that day, the 5th of April, began the blockade of the city and the firing on the city. 500,000 people, 500,000 people trapped in this city, not allowed food, not allowed water, not allowed electricity. That's it. It began on that day. It began unprovoked. A new bread shop opened that morning, just here on the right. Now, I regularly came up here to buy bread every morning. I, at that time, was still living in the students' hostel, which is just 5 minutes walk down the road. And I came to buy bread from one of the delivery lorries. Delivery lorries came around every morning. We used to queue up and wait for them to come. That morning, for reasons I can no longer remember, I didn't come up here. Instead, I went to see a friend, and but I do remember that before I left, I heard the explosion, wondered what had happened, saw the crowd gathering, began to walk in this direction, and then decided that if something had happened, there was nothing I could do. I would simply be a spectator, so it's best to keep away. Instead, I went to visit a friend to find that the whole thing was already on their television screen. So I sat there in a kind of numb shock, watching this and asking myself, can this be Sarajevo? Because this was the first piece of mass bloodshed that occurred.
Despite repeated bombardment, Bosnia-Herzegovina TV has managed to keep operating throughout the war, broadcasting the images which the West so often suppresses. On my return, I am interviewed by both the TV station and Sarajevo's indestructible newspaper, Oslobođenje, which, despite even heavier bombardment, has missed only one day. The temperature in this windowless room is about -10 centigrade.
Jamila, is that right?
Johanna.
Johanna.
Well, you remember pretty well because it was a long time ago.
I remember you well, but I'm terribly bad with names. Your hands must be icy.
Nothing.
Do you have any sort of fairly warm home to go to?
Yes, well, I live in a building which has no chimney. So, my mother and I, we bought what is it called?
Stove.
Yeah, a stove. So we put these chimneys through the windows, but we have no wood. It's very expensive, you know. Just for a bag of wood, you have to pay 20 German marks. It's very hard. My father got killed by a grenade 3 months ago. So since then, it has been really hard time for me and my mother. But I hope to survive.
For the dinner to which he has invited me, Jovo Tuta opens his last bottle of wine to go with a risotto made from just UN rice and herbs.
Dragi prijatelju, hvala da si nam došao I donio tako lijepe vijesti. U ovom teškom vremenu puno znači kad neko dođe sa takim lijepim vijestima. Mi smo, evo vidiš, još uvijek svi živi I zdravi, imamo nove prijatelji koji su sa Grbavice izbjegli, koji su došli sa koferom stvari. Mi se znamo zato što radimo u istom preduzeću. Sad smo jedna porodica. Eto tako u ovom gradu većina ljudi živi. Nas su uveli u Srbe, a njih u muslimane. I živimo zajedno.
When we were leaving Grbavica, our first neighbor was a Serb and he was in their army. He was crying for us. And he told us that he will never forget us, and that was a sad moment. And as you can see, we came here, this place, and driving off from one part of Serb nations, and we came here and we accepted by this wonderful man, Mr. Jovo Tuta, who is also Serb.
Mnogobrojnih dokaza da se ovdje radi o nametanju nekakvih nacionalnih podjela, što to, bar kad se tiče samog grada, nikad nije bilo bilo važno, mislim, te nacionalne podjele, vjerske I tako dalje. Živjelo se ovdje u jednoj zgradi, u jednom ulazu, u jednoj kući, živjelo se mješovito, sve nacije, sve vjere, sve rase, tako, pa evo I ovdje u ratu kad nas hoće da podijele, mi je tu.
On my way to Sarajevo, I spent a night in Split, in Croatia, where I met a refugee and her 2 children. She told me that her husband was a surgeon in the children's ward of the battered Koševo hospital. I offered to take him a video message from her.
Dr. Nedjeljčić, imam ovdje za vas od vaše žene u Splitu pismo i kaset, poruku što smo mi snimili u Splitu, ona i djeca su bili prisutni. Mi znamo da niste ih vidjeli 9 mjeseci i sasvim slučajno smo imali priliku da sretnemo vašu ženu i vrlo rado predam vam ovo i ovdje ima i hrana za vas. Od nje.
Nadamo se da ćeš nam moći ili poslati odgovor na isti način ili da ćeš moći doći uskoro do nas na nekakav način. U svakom slučaju molim te još samo malo strpljenja. Još samo malo strpljenja i moraš znati da te puno, puno volimo.
Malo mi je ovako glupo gledam u ovu kameru, a zamišljam vas preko puta sebe. Nadam se da ćemo se uskoro vidjeti i da se više nećemo rastajati. Veoma mi je teško i ne mogu više da dočekam trenutak kad ćemo se sresti. Nadam se da ću još ovo malo izdržati. Izdržavam jer radim dosta, tako da ne mogu puno da mislim na ove sve gluposti. Možeš malo.
Vijećnica was the National Library, and necessarily the University Library. It was stuffed with books, with manuscripts, with precious papers. There is no question that the bombardment of this building with incendiary shells was deliberately done. What kind of people make war on the culture and cultural history of a city? Sarajevo has lost, with the burning of this building and with the burning of its Oriental Institute, irreplaceable manuscripts, microfilms of manuscripts, hundreds of years of history swept away by people who do not wish to acknowledge that Sarajevo has an Oriental and a Turkish past. I ask again, what kind of people would do this? The answer is university professors. Nikola Koljevic of the Comparative Literature Department, Alexander Bucha of the Philosophy Department, Vojislav Maksimovic of the Slavistic Department, all of the faculty in which I have had the honor to work for 26 years. Milorad Ekovic of the History Department above all should have known what was being done. I will not mention the psychiatrist.
Predsjednici su podijelili novu kompromisnu mapu Bosne i Hercegovine, koja je nastala na osnovu konsultacija sa svim stranama u posljednjih nekoliko dana. Prema toj mapi Bosnu i Hercegovinu sačinjava 10 provincija.
Ever since I arrived in Sarajevo, Selma has been inviting me to meet her boyfriend, a Serb, with whom she has been for over 6 years. It seems time to find out how mixed relationships are faring in this war.
U tom smislu da smo izgubili ne samo komfort i neke živote koje smo normalno vodili, više ne vodimo, ne možemo da se viđamo tako često.
Jel se lakše se svađate ili jel suprotno?
Ne, mislim suprotno.
Nemamo vremena.
Nemamo vremena.
Zato što smo strašno malo zajedno.
Da.
Poželimo se.
Nemam ličnog života, ja nisam tako hrabar kao Selma, ja ne izlazim nigdje. Već 9 mjeseci. Nemam živce za nerve za takve stvari. Naravno da mi je žao što ne mogu da pomognem na bilo koji način. Tako da praktično sam non stop u kući.
Onda kako provediš dan?
Dan je kratak, ide se rano na spavanje, potpuno je sve izokrenuto iz ležišta. Tako da čitam koliko mogu, onda izgubim koncentraciju, onda uzmem nešto besmisleno da radim, pa se opet vratim da čitam i tako. Tako da je, onda budu nekad i pucnjave, bude.
Ponavljam, ti si muslimanka, Alek je Srbin. Mješovite veze, relationships, ima ih puno.
Ima ih puno.
Jel više nego prije, manje nego prije, isto?
Mislim isto.
Sasvim normalno.
To je sasvim normalno.
Mi smo smetnja.
Da. Smetnja kome?
Pa smetnja...
Onima koji žele da naprave čorove za ovce, da ovdje žive muslimanske ovce, ovdje srpske, ovdje hrvatske. A mi niti smo ovce, niti hoćemo da budemo u tori.
In one fold, Muslims, Serbs and Croats gather together in attempts just to cross the road and avoid the bullets of the wolves on the hills. There is this terrible myth that so many people now seem to believe in, that national identity is a sort of mystical reality that you carry within yourself, that brands you. And even if you don't know what you are, you still are that. It's as if someone born into the Church of England who doesn't actually believe in God was told, well, whether you like it or not, you are a Christian, and therefore I will persecute you. The world's media have colluded in this by accepting the ethnic categories laid down by the nationalists and labelling the warring sides accordingly. There are 50,000 Serbs inside Sarajevo who are resisting the onslaught of their fellow Serbs, but in the media, Sarajevo and its government are nearly always referred to as Muslim. How are the Bosnian Serbs in Sarajevo to be labelled? How are the thousands born from mixed marriages to be categorised? How are you going to sort and file a city where even now Muslims, Serbs and Croats still intermarry and will continue to do so as long as sanity survives? At last I have been able to get an appointment with Kemal Muftic, the presidential aide, to propose the exchange of my services for my son-in-laws.
Međutim, moj lični problem je moja kćerka, koja već 9 mjeseci je u Engleskoj sa malom djetetom i sa novom bebom. I kad sam ja rekao da ću se vratiti, ona skoro eksplodirala i rekla, čuj, tata kaže, postoji mogućnost da sam izgubila i muža i majku i sad ne bih htjela da izgubim i tatu. Međutim, meni je jasno da kad bi samo mogao njen muž da se vrati, odnosno da ide kod nje, onda ja bi slobodan da odem. Njen muž Samir je u vojsci, u bosanskoj vojsci i ja sam razgovarao s njim i on nema nikakvu namjeru da ode bez dozvole vlasti i ja svakako ne tražim privilegiju za jednu osobu, samo kažem da je to moj lični problem. I palo mi je na pamet da možda mi možemo jedan exchange da pravimo gdje Samir ode u Englesku, a ja se vratim u Sarajevo.
To je šaljivo, ali mislim da ta vrsta exchange-a nije baš izvodiva.
Ne. I tako sam, barem ja sam obećavao kćerki da ću barem to pitati. This is my 7th day in Sarajevo. All of these days I have been very worried about my wife because she lives in the new part of the city on the 18th floor of a high-rise block. Yesterday morning, to my great and glad surprise, she appeared in the house where I'm staying. She took an hour, of course, to walk there, as I have now taken an hour to walk here. Now at last I'm able to go and see what kind of conditions she has been living in all of these months of siege. My wife and I are separated. We have not lived together for 10 years, but we are good friends. And it has been a great anxiety, not only for me, but for our children, to know what has happened to her, and if possible, to rescue her from the city. Now, at last, it seems that there is a possibility that we can do this.
The trouble with these high-rise buildings is that everything depends on electricity. Yeah. You know, you have to, lifts work on electricity, telephones work on electricity, water is pumped.
Yeah, and above all, the lift works on electricity.
Of course.
You have to walk up and down.
Yes.
How many stairs?
314, I have
314. Mm-hmm.
So, but that wouldn't have been so bad. But, you know, you have nowhere to go, because no side of the house seems to be safe enough. But my first bullet hurt most of all. The window must have been open. And I walked this way and walked into the kitchen. At that moment, it whizzed past me and made this tiny little hole, which I'm using for my bell now. There's no electricity. And we followed the route. It must have hit there and made a hole through the door. Maybe if the neighbour is in, you'll see where it ended. We couldn't get out. Det var där ni med television av oss inglesa på. Det vill jag inte mäta kanske. And it ended here. And it's too deep in. I think it's deeper than your finger. And we couldn't get out. We were interested to see what sort of a bullet it was.
I mean, how badly has this building as a whole been hit?
I don't know how many grenades fell. I mean, this is my lot, eh? And I've been lucky. Yeah. Oh, I'll start crying in a minute. But this is an application form. What is it? To get me a press accreditation.
Which is all you need.
What does the producer do?
Never mind, you'll produce.
If they ask me, you know, what's my job, I wouldn't know.
They talked this morning to Metkovic.
Yes?
Dom talked to Metkovic and to the leader of the convoy, and he says it's perfectly okay as long as you have accreditation. They'll take you out with pleasure.
Very good, thank you very much. Otherwise you'll have frozen me on your hands.
Yes.
Do you know why they stopped shelling home, you know, the
why they stopped?
Television tower?
Yeah?
Well, after about 100 grenades, they realised it wasn't the mosque.
In Sarajevo, in the heart of Europe, corazón del mundo. And if you try to share that heart, your love Europe may soon be pulled apart. But if you want to save the world,
I came here under an illusion, created partly by my own apprehensions, but fed by impressions gathered from television and newspaper reports back in England. My apprehension was that I was coming to not just a ruined city, but a totally demoralized city. And I feared what I would find. I feared that what I found would be something so horrible that I would never ever want to come here again. I'm glad to say that quite the opposite is the case. The city is not dead. It's destroyed, but it's not dead because the city is its people. And I'm happy today, in spite of all the wreck and ruin around me, to find my Sarajevo people the same as I've always known them. And not least, I must say, happy at the very warm reception I've been given, because I also was afraid that they would be angry with me for having stayed away for those 4 months.
in the heart of Europe.
Look, if I had decided to drink some hard liquor, it's my business. I've got good reason to. I've got constipation for 3 days. Nothing has moved in my bowels. I'm very dirty all over. I've got a beard as long as Methuselah, right? And I'm glad to be out.
Here I am, back in Sarajevo after 10 months. When our film was shown, many people in England asked me by letter or by phone call what they could do to help. Well, I've come to try to help them, to help the Sarajevo people, but to help them by asking them that question, what can we do?
Ten months later, the hospitality of the Zečevićes is as defiant of their conditions as ever, although the day before we arrived, a shell destroyed the house across the road. Selma is missed as she is now working for the Umbrafor outside the city, and dysentery has left Mr. Zečević much thinner than last time. Spirits are worn, but unbroken, and are lifted slightly when the family is able to see our film broadcast on a neighbour's TV powered by a car battery. The film is also shown at the most ambitious artistic response yet to the siege, the International Sarajevo Film Festival, an event soured only by the British government's request to the UNHCR to prevent Vanessa Redgrave and other filmmakers from attending.
Why a normal festival in such an abnormal situation?
Because we are trying to remain normal. And that's the point.
What actually happened to Vanessa Redgrave's party?
Vanessa Redgrave was in Sarajevo a month ago. Then we met and we talked, we told her about our film festival. So she said, very good, I'll try to get some films for you. They came to Ancona finally on October 22nd, waiting for the plane to come here.
And they had all the correct, they had the accreditation?
They had everything. But finally, the paper appeared in which somebody from Geneva, from UNHCR, said that those people on the lists mustn't be in Sarajevo. So, okay, then forget Bosnians, forget dark Balkans, forget Muslims, forget all those tribes living on the branches in the Balkans. And let us talk about English people staying in Ancona, waiting to come someplace in the world and not being allowed to come. Let us talk for the difference about UN siege.
Yes.
Which is the second siege.
This is what I wanted you to say.
And I don't want to us to forget the first siege we are having, and we are dying every day of that. I mean, what happened?
A fire extinguisher fell down inside the cinema while the film was in progress. People's nerves are so bad that they thought a bomb had gone off and rushed out. It's a good illustration of how nervous everybody is.
One Sarajevan who has reached the end of his tether is my friend Vedran Smailović, the cellist now famous for playing on the site of the Bread Queue massacre. He no longer plays there because he has now lost his cello.
Treba i reći to da si ti prestao da jedeš kada prije 5 dana uzeli stan i ti sad nećeš da jedeš.
U stvari, kada sam ostao, ne samo bez stana, nego što je preći, kad sam ostao bez instrumenta, moje violončelo je moj instrument. To je moje oružje. Kada sam ostao bez oružja, a što onda, predaj se? Ja sam se predao. Ja više snage ne imam.
Ti si odlučio na samoubistvo?
Da. Vjeruj mi da mi je žao.
Mrtvi ljudi ne mogu ništa.
Ni ovi živi ne mogu.
Živi imaju neke šanse ponekad, tu i tamo. Mrtvi nemaju.
Od mnogobrojnih poziva, kad me gospodin predsjednik USA, Jimmy Carter, zvao da dođem u Ameriku.
I nisi mogao ići, jel?
Ne.
I što je bilo? Ko ti je spriječio da ideš?
UNHCR. Ljudi odlaze, 3000 maraka se uplati oficiru nekom, šta ja znam.
Umproforov.
Pa da, pa nećemo. Ne, uplatiš i onda ode. Odmah na orli te fino spusti.
A taj samo traži...
Samo keš.
A most curious situation obtains in this city. It's bombarded every day, yet the Umprofor sits in the midst of the city itself and observes. That same Umprofor distributes just sufficient food to keep people alive. Indeed, we now know that food earmarked for this city is going to the besiegers. Sarajevo is full of people who long to get out. They can't go out because the Umprofor forbids them to fly on its planes. Bosnian citizens are not allowed to fly on these planes. Mail. People in this city long for their loved ones, and their loved ones outside long for them. Yet the Umprofor does not allow us, we who love this city, to bring mail in to help these people. Sarajevo people say that there are two sieges. There is the siege conducted by Ratko Mladic and his Yugoslav army, but there is another siege, the siege of the Umprofor bureaucracy, that for reasons not known to us, not at any rate overtly stated, seems to wish this city to die as soon as possible. Is it possible that there is a connection between this and the curious charade being played out at Geneva, where an innocent country which has attacked no one is being carved up and served on a plate to enemies who are ethnic fascists? No other word will do for them. How strange that the West should take that side and not this.
The international community created, basically, or saved, virus of ethnic cleansing. Now this virus of ethnic cleansing, which is now being legitimized in Bosnia by the ignorance of the international community, will spread all around the world, like AIDS.
Do you think it will be possible ever to rehabilitate the 2 million or so displaced persons?
You see, I visited the front lines all around Bosnia, and I had many conversations with our soldiers. And I asked them, what are your priorities after the war? And people have different answers, several priorities. I'm pleased to tell you that revenge is not one of them.
This optimistic view of post-war Bosnia from the Vice President Eyüp Ganic is shared by many people in Sarajevo. This time, of course, Jovo Tuta has no last bottle of wine to open for us.
Balkan je tako, ali meni čudi da Evropa, ona stalno uporna, što Francuzi i Englezi hoće da dokažu da je etko ovdje nekakva podjela. Ne bude shvatljivo mi. Eto, ja apelujem samo na i ovdje, i na Engleze, smatram da su pametni i obrazovani, da ne naslijedaju. Ja nisam još gledao ovo. Ako svijet uspije, ako što je na put, kao što ti hoće, eto, nadam se da hoće, Sarajevo je spasi. Ne u smislu da sad on pomiruje kao narode u Sarajevu. Ne to mislim. Još da neko sa strane ne nametne podjelu. vjerovatno za vrlo kratko vrijeme bi na čitavoj teritoriji Bosne i Hercegovine, bez obzira kako su oni podijeli i napravili mir, došlo do jednog normalnije odnosa.
Despite rumours in the British press of harassment of Serbs inside Sarajevo, none of the many I've spoken to, not Jovo, for example, not Selma's now ex-boyfriend Alec, has experienced any sort of discrimination. Alec still spends most of his time reading, waiting for electricity, reading again.
Primetio sam kad smo došli jučer kod vas da peć fino gori, hoće li biti tako kroz cijelu zimu?
Pa ako budemo živi i zdravi, ako budem živi i zdravi, mislim da hoću jer imam puno knjiga. Ja više sad ništa ne želim, imam ploča puno i čuo sam da dobro gore.
Da, a sad ja sam čuo prije neki dan jedan neukusni vic o tome kako čovjek dolazi u posjetu nekoga koji kaže da, hoćeš kafu, da, hoćeš kafu pečeno na krliži ili na andriću.
Svejedno. Evo tu je krleža gore andrić. Pa ne bih odmah pošao sa andrićem i sa krležom jer mislim, pogotovo sa andrićem ne bih. Andrića bih čuvao do posljednje kafe.
Evo imate direktan za svu raju s Londonom direktno hapanje iz džepa.
The black humour of Sarajevo is getting blacker. The TV comedy team, Nadrealista, the Surrealists, are much fated for having predicted the division of Sarajevo 4 years before the war broke out. They are currently shooting their 4th series, but are making no predictions about the outbreak of peace.
Ja sam u gradu već 3 sedmice i svugdje kad sam kod nekoga tražim nove viceve i nema ih. Jel humor umro u Sarajevu? A gdje su suli umro?
Humor uopšte nije umro u Sarajevu. Ovo je grad jedinstven po tome što je ovo mjesto na planeti gdje direktno nastaju vice. Ovdje se iz života ovog ljudi koji nas okružuju non stop dešavaju situacije koje kada se ispričaju su u stvari vicevi.
Dakle, prva ekskluzivna crta u takmičenju sa bidonima u Sarajevu. Vrlo dobro prolazno vrijeme, Hajde, izgleda je došlo do nesreće, Idi, nućete! Pade čovjek, brzo! Hajde, nućete! Tako je, nućete! Došlo je do nepredviđenih situacija. Tako je, nućete, brzo! Ali voda je život, kanistere ne smijemo ostaviti. Olimpijski duh u Sarajevu, ne gasi se.
Hello.
Hello, Bill.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Just like last time, you look extraordinarily cheerful, but you're obviously not cheerful at all. I mean, how do you feel after 16 months of this?
Resigned.
Any end in sight? Do you have any idea how you'd like it to end? What would you like to happen?
End?
Yes. What would you like to happen tomorrow?
Like to get some electricity, finally. That's all that we think about.
Although Oslobođenje is still printing every day, its writers, like my friend Gordana Knežević, are suffering the same listlessness as all of Sarajevo.
I mean, a siege has already taken all the energy out of the people. And we are suffering of some syndrome which I would describe as a prison syndrome. And people almost have forgotten about the Serbs which originally put us in this siege.
The last 2 or 3 days of really rather heavy shelling, particularly the day before yesterday. Doesn't this sort of remind people of the real cause of their situation?
No, you know why? It's partly because in living through this war, and I think living through any war, people keep forgetting things. And you even forget what you had for your meal yesterday, and you forget things which happened last year and which happened 18 months ago.
You remind me of a friend of mine who said that she couldn't even remember the names of her favourite film stars.
That's
sort of amnesia.
That applies to each of us.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of brain damage, I think, just because of all disaster we witnessed here.
Behind me, across the road, still stand the remains of the truck that burns in the street battle shown at the beginning of our film. This dilapidation, this ruin, seems to me to represent physically the mood that I fear I now find prevalent in Sarajevo. This population no longer believes that the war can be won, no longer believes that Sarajevo has any future, and I fear that many people no longer believe that they themselves have a future. Once the enemy was the Serbs on the hills. They are still there, but now the enemies are cold, hunger, dirt and disease, and above all, the cold. Winter is coming. It's a cold day today. We can feel it coming. I myself, too, am beginning to lose hope. Oh, surprise.
Oh, hello, 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 hello.
There's the happy man.
Today is the birthday of Goran Simic, a poet who is one of my closest friends in Sarajevo and who is married to an ex-student of mine, Amela.
Bravo, Mali.
There are candles but no cake, a party but no presents. Just one bottle of wine and some Sarajevo books.
We spoke earlier of the last time we were all together in this room. About 70 people all gathered here. I remember that party too, and that now only 5 of those people are still in the city.
That's the point. I mean, I think all the time, well, I want to go out, I want to go away, I want to end up this and everything, and then I reproach myself and I say, do you love this town? Why are you here at all? I mean, you still have friends here, and then I just decided that I'm very, very, very tired.
But I've realized that I've been out too long, and I've actually come back with the natural thoughts and feelings of the person who was here 9 months ago. I've been in a kind of tank, yeah, and I'm out of step with everybody now. Behind me is the city, which has been called the world's greatest concentration camp. According to the disgusting Van Zoen plan, this city would be cut off from the hinterland that you can see. Can you imagine London cut off from Epping Forest? Now, many of the people in the city are so weary, so hopeless, so longing for peace and normalcy that they would like to see that plan signed tomorrow. I do not know how many feel this way. I understand them, but I would suggest something else. It is not too late. It is not too late for intervention. Intervention which, by the way, would certainly have come if the old minarets of Sarajevo, which you can see in the background, had been oil derricks. Let us, for God's sake, for the sake of justice, stop this slow process of sheer bloody murder. Let's stop it, intervene tomorrow, and end it.
After a year of negotiating, I have at long last succeeded in getting my son-in-law Samir onto a UN flight out of the city. Black market brandy at £40 a bottle is found for what may be the last drink that he ever has in his hometown.
We were lucky to have electricity for an hour. Now back to the candles again. I'm going to read the last poem from Goran's new book, which is called The Sarajevo Sorrow. I'm still alive in Sarajevo. The present tense here means living in the past. To speak about the future here means to dream. The white sheet of paper is my last homeland. My pencil is my religion, though I sometimes wish to exchange graphite for gunpowder. We are still alive in Sarajevo. It is a privilege in the town in which death from a shell is a natural death, and natural death is indecency. We are still alive in Sarajevo.